Come on. It's time to get up for school. Come on. Hey. Get up. Hey, are you time for school?
Okay.
You're not up. You're just laying there. Get out of bed. There's very few things in life that are harder than waking up a child to go to school. But if there's a close second, it has to be picking who you should start and sit for your running backs for your fantasy football team. There's not a whole lot of options at times. With recent moves, injuries, depth chart concerns, who are you going to start in week one? That's what we're talking about right now. What's going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully you guys are all doing well out there. Welcome back to the Draft.com studios. Today, we're talking about running back starts and sits for week one. The offseason is finally over. We can actually get into some real games and start winning some fantasy football contests. Real quick, though, there's probably a lot of new faces here that maybe weren't here last year for these shows. Just a quick reminder, this is how we do things in our start-sit shows. You can watch a lot of other channels or things on TV. They'll talk about 3, 4, 5 players, starts of the week, sits of the week. Nah, that doesn't help everybody. We're trying to help everybody in this community. So the way we do it, we go through every matchup, every position, every week. We're going to talk about the people that are on your rosters, but I can already hear the people out there complaining, Jake, we don't have 30 minutes to watch a show. Well, great. Look down in the description. All the matchups, they're time-stamped to help you out. We're trying to help as many people possible, and I understand that not everybody has that huge amount of time to sit there and just watch YouTube videos. I understand that. We're trying to help you out, and we're not going to waste a whole lot of time. If you're looking for some DFS content, maybe you're into some of those other sites and really into the daily fantasy sports, head over to our Patreon page. We have a package over there for DFS. That's what we're going to absolutely kill it this year. So if that's something you're interested in, head down in the description, click that link, and let's get into that. But for right now, let's talk about some week one starts and sits at the running back position. All right, let's kick it off on Thursday Night Football. Great matchup, Packers and Bears. The NFL season gets underway with a great game. But who are we starting and sitting from the running back position? Well, we're starting the guys from Chicago. We're going to start David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen, which may be a little bit of a surprise to some people. A lot of people hopping off the Tariq Cohen bandwagon, and I get it. He may not finish with the same numbers he had last year. There's been reports coming out that, he may have limited touches this season, possibly just due to the efficiency that maybe we see from David Montgomery. The problem is, we haven't actually seen David Montgomery in a regular season NFL game yet, so I'm not ready just to crown the guy as all things Chicago running back. Tariq Cohen had a great role in this offense last year, and I expect to see him in a similar role this year again. As far as this matchup goes, solid matchup for David Montgomery. I think he sees close to 20 touches. Can he find the end zone? That'll be a big payday for you. Tariq Cohen in PPR leagues, deeper leagues as a flex play. I don't mind. Do I want him to be my RB2 in a 10-team league? No, probably not. But if you're in one of those larger 12, 14, 16-team leagues looking for a flex play, I don't mind Tariq Cohen against the Packers this week. It's still a great matchup. As far as the Packers running backs, Aaron Jones I'm worried about. And it's not so much for the season. I love Aaron Jones this year. But more importantly, I really want to win week one of my fantasy football matchups. And if I have a better option, and that's kind of where maybe I should have put an asterisk by his name here also. If there's no better option on your bench, maybe somebody that we don't talk about later, then you just roll the dice with Aaron Jones, cross your fingers, hopefully he breaks a big run, falls into the end zone a time or two, and saves your fantasy day. But if I want to bank on a win, going up against the Chicago Bears defense that just because they were good last year, does that mean that they're good this year? Yeah, it does, because they're going to be really good again, and this is a tough matchup for the Packers, who could rely a little bit more through the air than on the ground. If that's the case, Aaron Jones could struggle, and if you have no better options, I'm going to go ahead and sit Aaron Jones here for week one. Moving on to the Sunday games, first game up on the slate is going to be the Rams and the Panthers. This one's a little bit more straightforward, I believe. I mean, you've drafted Todd Gurley probably in the second round, maybe in the first in some drafts. Christian McCaffrey, he's a top 4 pick. You're going to start both of these guys. There's no week in which Todd Gurley is going to be more fresher than he is in week one. He's definitely going to be a start for me here going up against the Carolina Panthers. And a lot of people ask about Darrell Henderson here, thinking that, hey, maybe he gets enough of a workload each and every week that he's probably somebody that could start as a flex play. In my opinion, until we see how this plays out, until we see how Todd Gurley looks on a weekly basis, maybe how he performs in practice leading up to the games, Darrell Henderson's a sit unless Todd Gurley's not playing. Yes, whoever plays, running back in that backfield for the Rams has that opportunity. I really think it's kind of a plug-and-play backfield. We saw it with C.J. Anderson last year. Whoever's running the ball, they're going to find success. However, until Todd Gurley comes off that field, I'm not starting Darrell Henderson. And obviously, Christian McCaffrey, he's going to be a start also. I mean, you drafted him in the top 4 picks. You're going to start the guy, but this is a great matchup for him. Also, the Rams, we know they can score points in bunches, like quickly. That is a very high-powered offense. Carolina is going to have to throw the ball through the air in order to keep pace with the Rams throughout this ball game. How do they do that? Well, there's going to be a lot of checkdowns and a lot of usage of Christian McCaffrey. Maybe he breaks a big one, takes it to the house, falls in the end zone a time or two. He's an obvious must start, but it is a great matchup, in my opinion, for Christian McCaffrey. Moving on to a game that I really don't have a whole lot of interest in. It's the Redskins and Eagles. I kind of expect the Eagles to win this one somewhat handily, and I expect a lot of running in the second half, especially if they can get a lead early in the first. Kind of why I have Jordan Howard as a start here this week. Do I love Jordan Howard in this backfield? Is he my favorite running back in Philadelphia? No, he's not. Miles Sanders is. But I don't expect Miles Sanders to come out in week 1 of his NFL career and lead the team in carries. Unless an injury happened, this is going to be Jordan Howard's backfield, at least to start the season. I think the closer we get towards the end of the season, we may see more and more and more Miles Sanders. But to start off week 1, I expect a heavy dose of the run game and Jordan Howard in Philadelphia. On the sit side, I'm sitting everybody else. I already talked about Miles Sanders. Until we can see what type of volume he's going to get, he'll remain a sit for me. Darius Geis and Adrian Peterson, what type of split are we seeing there? Maybe even Chris Thompson gets thrown into the mix there if they start trailing and have to throw the ball more. There's so many different options for the Redskins. It worries me, and the Eagles' run defense is solid. I'm not excited to start Geis or Peterson this week. Hopefully, throughout your draft, you came up with a few better options that you're not reliant on starting either one of these guys here in week 1 of the NFL season. For me, Geis, Peterson, going up against an Eagles run defense in Philadelphia to start the regular season, pass. All right, moving on to the Bills and the Jets next, and this one could get ugly at times, and we're going to start Le'Veon Bell, but I'm not overly excited about it. I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on the run defense of the Buffalo Bills. It's really not bad, but the volume should be there for Le'Veon Bell. Now, can he produce anything with that volume? That's been the question all offseason, right? We know he's going to touch the ball, but is he going to struggle when he's not running behind that Pittsburgh offensive line or that Pittsburgh play calling? How much different is it going to be? Does Ty Montgomery turn into one of those guys that just pisses you off in your fantasy season because Le'Veon Bell gets you down the field and Ty Montgomery steals goal line carries? There's so many different options out there. We really don't know. However, the usage in week 1 for Le'Veon Bell, his very first game as a Jet at home, we're going to go ahead and start him. Now for the Buffalo Bills backfield, we're going to sit everybody. And it's not that I hate it. It's that we don't know what's going to happen. We know there's no more LaShawn McCoy. We all assume that Devin Singletary is going to be, the leader of this backfield. However, Frank Gore has been ruining backfields for like 15 years, sucking away some of the upside from the younger talent ahead of him. TJ Yeldon, also in town, pass-catching upside. What do they do with this 3-headed backfield? Do they use all 3 of them? Is Frank Gore kind of just insurance, just in case something happens? Do they just shoulder the load with Devin Singletary? I like this backfield. I like what it could be later on in the season, but week 1, until there's more clarity of who's going to get the bulk of the touches on a weekly basis, I'm sitting all 3. In what could be one of the most exciting games of the week, we have the Falcons and the Vikings. This game could have a lot of offense scored in it. The difference is on the defensive side of the football. The Minnesota Vikings do have a better defense, but we're still going to start Devontae Freeman and Dalvin Cook in this matchup. Now, we've talked about Dalvin Cook at length this offseason. A lot of people still hate on Dalvin Cook, and I think they assume that when we say that we like him and the volume that he could get this year, that we're saying he's going to go out there and get 20 carries a week. It's not what we're saying. If he can go out there and get you 14, 15 carries and maybe somewhere between 5 and 8 targets, which he then converts into a few receptions a week, in PPR leagues, Dalvin Cook has ridiculous upside. We saw it at times here in the preseason. The explosiveness, the elusiveness, the vision in the backfield to make one cut and get up the field quickly. Dalvin Cook is going to be a definite start for us this week. Devontae Freeman, I'm not overly excited about starting him. What we need in this game is the Minnesota Vikings to come out to an early lead and have the Falcons rely more on the passing game, and maybe that gives you that solid base, that solid floor for Devonta Freeman. We do not want this to turn into a game where the Falcons get a lead early, because we're not going to want to see Devonta Freeman being pounded up the middle week one when they have a lead. That's something that's a scenario that we could see throughout the year, that if the Falcons get a huge lead, maybe they do pull him late in games. Still love the upside. There's really nobody behind him to challenge him for lead touches, so Devonta Freeman's still going to be a start. We're just tempering expectations slightly. Now, a lot of people also asking about Alexander Mattison, the backup to Dalvin Cook. Similar to when we talked about Darrell Henderson, unless Dalvin Cook goes down, I'm not starting Alexander Mattison. The guy is a wrecking ball. He's capable of handling all 3 downs. But if Dalvin Cook is healthy, I'm not starting him unless we see here a few weeks into the season that he's kind of going to play that Latavius Murray role from last season, where he still gets maybe 12 touches a week. That's when we'll start talking about whether we want to start Alexander Mattison or not. But until we see it, I'm not assuming it. He's a sit for me here in week 1. Moving on to what could be the most boringest game of week 1. The Ravens at the Dolphins, and the Dolphins really don't give a crap already, and it's week 1. So we're going to go ahead and start the backfield of the Baltimore Ravens of Mark Ingram and Justice Hill in deeper leagues as a flex. Justice Hill still has some decent upside in PPR leagues and could give you that solid flex play on a weekly basis. Now, Mark Ingram, he's going to see goal line carries. He's going to see the bulk of the work, and we already know they're going to run the ball a lot in Baltimore, especially in a game like this against the Miami Dolphins, against the Dolphins who really don't care. If the Ravens can go out there and get any lead whatsoever, we know they're going to run the football. Mark Ingram could see over 20 touches. Justice Hill, somebody who on third downs and at times throughout the games could make a big play happen at any time. He's more of one of those, 12, 14, 16 team league flexes to start. However, as the season progresses, he's somebody that may turn into a weekly flex play, but we need to see a little bit more from that offense. On the Dolphins side, we're going to sit Kalen Ballage and Kenyon Drake. Not only is it a tough run defense of the Baltimore Ravens, but the Miami Dolphins offense is going to struggle. Now, if there is one bright spot possibly, it's that Kenyon Drake. If you're forced to start Kenyon Drake, at least he'll be in the game for passing downs if they do, start falling behind early to the Baltimore Ravens, and he could rack up a few receptions. The ceiling may be pretty low, but the floor may be somewhat safe for Kenyon Drake, but we don't even know if he's 100% healthy. That's kind of why we're sitting him. Let's let a week go by or so. Let's see what offense, if any offense, happens in Miami before we throw one of these guys out there here week 1. I'm not willing to risk it for the biscuit this early in the fantasy football season. Chiefs and Jags are next, and this one could be a little bit interesting. We have the high-powered offense of the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the once impenetrable defense of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm pretty sure that's the first time I've ever used the word impenetrable. But what do we do with the running backs in this game? Well, I'm going to start Leonard Fournette for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The only issue, the only concerns that I have him making him somewhat of a risky start is if the Chiefs can come out to a big lead to start the game, maybe they abandon the run in Jacksonville and we don't see as much Leonard Fournette. However, I do expect the Jacksonville Jaguars to be improved in the passing game this year. It's not Blake Bortles anymore. It's Nick Foles. He's got a lot of young weapons. If they can move the ball down the field anywhere near the goal line, we know Leonard Fournette's getting the work. If he can get us close to 18 to 20 touches on the ground, that's a positive for Leonard Fournette. More than likely, he's your running back too anyway. Now, we're going to start Damian Williams also. A lot of questions about this backfield, especially with the newly signed LaShawn McCoy and Darwin Thompson, who's been screaming up the depth charts. But I'm starting Damian Williams for this reason. One, he's already the lead starter. He was going to start week 1 ahead of Darwin Thompson anyway. Now we throw Shady in the mix. Shady's been in Kansas City for like 6 minutes, it feels like. I'm not going to all of a sudden say he's going to go out there and touch the ball 15 times a game. Yes, he's with Andy Reid, more than likely a familiar system with what he's had back in his time in Philadelphia many, many moons ago. But week 1 to start the season, Damian Williams still going to be the guy. It's a tough matchup going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but in this offense with Kansas City, we want to start the pieces that are going to be involved. In my opinion, week 1, Damian Williams still involved. He's going to be a start for me here. Already talked about the sits. LaShawn McCoy, we're going to give him a few weeks. Let's see what type of role actually establishes here before we go and crown him as what he was in Philadelphia a few years ago. Do I think he plays a part in this backfield? Absolutely. If anything happens to Damian Williams, LaShawn McCoy could have some huge value. Not seeing it right away in week 1. Like I said, the guy's only been there for a few days. Darwin Thompson, We've talked about him at length on this channel. We love Darwin Thompson. We think eventually this could be his backfield. Is it going to be now in 2019 with the signing of LaShawn McCoy? More than likely, probably not. He's going to have to move back to third on the depth chart, which does hurt. However, Damian Williams, LaShawn McCoy, not known for being, huge, people of health. They could get hurt at any times, and if Darwin Thompson gets a chance, huge upside. Definitely somebody to keep an eye on. If you took him in your draft, if there's nobody else on your waiver wire worth dropping him for, don't just drop him just because. He could literally be one of those guys that is the number one waiver wire claim. If something happens to one of these guys in this backfield, hang on to him unless there's somebody of great value sitting out there on the waiver wire. His time is coming in Kansas City. It's just not going to be week one. We're sitting him here. Titans and Browns up next, and we already know how we feel about the Browns offense on this channel. We think that they're going to be absolutely great, not buying into the whole, Odell and Baker Mayfield, and this is just going to blow up at some point. Well, it's not blowing up in week one, so let's talk about week one right now. The Tennessee Titans do have a very solid run defense. However, the offense of the Cleveland Browns has enough weapons on the outside to pull those defenders outside of the box. They're not going to be able to load the box against Nick Chubb because they're going to get absolutely torched on the outside by Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, David Njoku, and anybody else you want to name on that depth chart because this offense has so many possibilities. Nick Chubb, one of the only running backs in the NFL that's going to go out there and touch the ball close to 20 times a game. If you have one of those running backs, you start them on a weekly basis regardless of their matchup. Derrick Henry, though, for me, he's going to be a sit. Is he 100% healthy? Do the Browns come out to a big lead and Tennessee has to rely on a passing game, which now has a few more weapons, not just Corey Davis? It's possible. Until we see Derrick Henry at 100% on the field, shouldering the load of close to 20 touches a week, I'm a little bit worried about him to start the season. He's going to be a sit, not to mention that front seven of the Cleveland Browns, they're tough, and he's not going to find too many holes running the ball. They can get in the backfield quick there in Cleveland. I'm going to sit Derrick Henry. Now, this could be a big surprise. Dion Lewis, and I'm talking deep leagues. I'm talking 12 teams and plus. If you're scrambling for a flex play, Dion Lewis may be a possibility. If the Browns do get out to a lead and they do rely on throwing the ball more, he does offer some PPR upside. However, deep leagues only. If you're in a 10 or 12 team league, more than likely he's probably not even owned in one of those leagues. However, deeper league guys looking for some upside, Dion Lewis in a PPR game, not a bad matchup. Colts and Chargers up next in the battle of what could be, right? We could have seen Andrew Luck here. We could have seen Melvin Gordon here, but we're not going to see either one of them. As you can see, Melvin Gordon, for the first time in forever, is under the sit column because he's not going to play. So who are we starting? We're starting Marlon Mack still. A lot of people hating on Marlon Mack after the retirement of Andrew Luck, thinking that he just lost all of his value, and he may have lost some, but don't sleep and don't hate on Jacoby Brissett. The guy is still a capable quarterback in this league. He's had more time in this offense to be ready for this moment. Is he Andrew Luck? No, he's not. But Marlon Mack has the ability to play 3 downs. He has the goal line opportunity, and he's somebody that could approach that 20 touches a week threshold. Does he get it every single week? That's really going to depend on the game flow and how things are going. But Marlon Mack still has mid to low end RB2 upside, and he's going to be a start. Now the other 3, you see Nyheim Hines, Austin Eckler, and Justin Jackson. They're all going to be starts for me as flex plays only. Nyheim Hines, more in those deeper leagues, those 14, those 16-team leagues, he has PPR flex play upside. Maybe Jacoby Brissett panics at times on 3rd downs and is forced to check down at times. Nyheim Hines is the main beneficiary of that. Now for the backfield of the Los Angeles Chargers, I think both of these guys are going to have weekly flex play potential. Is either one of them going to approach RB2 status? We're really going to have to wait and see how it goes in that backfield. I think, obviously, in PPR leagues, Austin Eckler has the higher upside. Standard leagues, the goal line touches, that's more Justin Jackson. This is going to be a split in this backfield. Neither one of these guys is going to get 20 touches on a weekly basis. However, with this offense that's going to be looking for playmakers at times, especially if Keenan Allen is limited to start the season, both of these guys have flex play value, in my opinion. They could both see in upwards of 10 to 15 touches a week each, and that alone is enough to make them a flex play, in my opinion, starting right here in week 1. Bengals and Seahawks up next, and we're going to start off on the Bengals side, and I'm going to start Joe Mixon. However, it's a little bit of a risky start, in my opinion. We already know that Seattle's bolstering their defense once again, signing Jadeveon Clowney. How ready is he to go by week 1? That's a question. However, he's another force to be reckoned with on that defensive line. Joe Mixon, capable of playing all 3 downs. He's had some injuries to his offensive line and some guys who have retired, quit, whatever they wanted to do. They're gone in Cincinnati. However, Joe Mixon has looked great in the preseason. He's explosive. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he's going to be one of the lone weapons for the Bengals here for the first few weeks until maybe, if ever, A.J. Green can get 100% healthy. Still going to start Joe Mixon. The running backs for the Seattle Seahawks, definitely going to start Chris Carson. Great matchup for Chris Carson. He's still the lead back in this backfield, and Pete Carroll's going to stick with him. He's definitely somebody who can go out there, get 20 touches on a home game with that field, with that crowd behind them. Could definitely put up some solid numbers. Now, if you're in a deeper league, I also like Rashad Penny. Maybe they get a decent lead in Seattle. They need to start working in Rashad Penny a little bit more. Rashad Penny could be the beneficiary of a lot of garbage points this week. We know they're going to run the ball a lot in Seattle. Both of these guys have RB2 upside. Carson maybe even has RB1 upside on certain matchups throughout the season. This may be one of them. Love the start of Chris Carson, and in deeper leagues, Rashad Penny has value also. Niners and Bucks up next, and if you've watched this channel at all for any length of time, I think you can probably figure this one out on your own. We're definitely going to start Tevin Coleman. It's a great matchup for Tevin Coleman. He's not just delegated to that, running between the tackles role in this offense. We could see him not only in the backfield, but we can see him line up in the slot at times. Jalen Hurd, his back is banged up. There's just more areas for Tevin Coleman to hurt an opposing defense. He's definitely going to be a start for me, especially in this Kyle Shanahan offense, which really knows how to use the skills that Tevin Coleman brings to the table. And it's not like the defense over there on the opposite side of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is one to really be feared. It's just not going to happen. Love Tevin Coleman. And more than likely, he's probably your flex play unless you went heavy wide receiver in the draft, and maybe he's your RB2, but that's limited risk for huge upside this week for Tevin Coleman. Matt Breida, in deeper leagues, larger than 12 teams, I also think he has some upside. I think he still sees close to 10 to 12 carries a week, maybe, and we saw that with him last year, that he didn't need huge volume to produce great numbers. If he can go out there and get you 10 to 12 carries a week, maybe a goal line carry or two, that is solid flex play. Don't forget, this offense last year made the names of Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., a washed-up Alfred Morris. I mean, all these guys were viable at one point in this backfield. Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman, I like both against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As far as the Buccaneers go, I'm not starting any of them. I don't care if it's Ronald Jones. I don't care if it's Peyton Barr. I don't care who it is. I'm not starting a running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 1 of my fantasy football season. Hopefully throughout the draft, you have better options. There's nobody here that I'm overly excited about. I guess if I had to choose one, it's Peyton Barber. But I don't even want to do that. Maybe you're in a super deep league and you don't have a choice. It's still probably Peyton Barber. Even though he's not very efficient, it sounds like he may get the bulk of the work to start the season. And that's all you can do at this point is find the carries. He's the safest bet. But in my opinion, I'm not starting any of them. Giants and Cowboys up next, and what could have been the battle of Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott turns into the battle of Saquon Barkley and Tony Pollard. Thanks for being stupid, Zeke. Yep, he's not going to be there. Doesn't sound like he's going to be there week 1. Still working on a contract, but not close as of yet. We're going to start Saquon Barkley. Obviously, do I need to sit here and tell you why? However, this is a tough defense of the Dallas Cowboys. They are not given enough respect. This is not going to be one of those cakewalks for Saquon Barkley. He could struggle at times and be reliant on a big play. Maybe if he doesn't get that big play, hopefully he can catch a few passes out of the backfield to really give you a solid, day through your fantasy football team, especially in PPR leagues. But he may be somewhat big play dependent. This is a solid defense of the Dallas Cowboys. Don't forget that. Tony Pollard, I do think sees decent volume, and I don't hate Tony Pollard this week at all. Is he a 3-down back, somebody who's going to go out there and touch the ball 20 times a game and be the next Zeke Elliott? He's not. However, he's going to be involved in the passing game in PPR leagues. That could really help out. He's probably going to see somewhere close to 12 to 15 touches this week. And if he does, he's explosive enough to make something happen with it. I'm going to go ahead and make him a flex play start this week. Alfred Morris. Are we really going to be excited to start Alfred Morris? No. 14 teams are larger as a flex play. Maybe. However, am I super excited to throw out Alfred Morris on any given point in time? I'm really not. The big play opportunity, the bulk of the touches, Tony Pollard could be the guy this week. Alfred Morris is more of the, I don't have any other choice. In the battle of two teams fighting to see who sucks the most, it's the Lions and the Cardinals, and I know the Lions are more improved. I get it, yada, 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 and I'm a Cardinals fan, so I can say that. But we're talking about who we're going to start and sit here for week one. We're starting Kerryon Johnson of the Detroit Lions. Now, the defense of the Arizona Cardinals, at least the run defense, I think is a little bit, underrated at this point. However, their passing defense, they've lost their number one and number two defensive back. It is, obliterated. Can they have their way through the air, the Detroit Lions, with the Arizona Cardinals? That's possible. Now, if that's possible and the Lions get a lead, we may see a little bit more Kerryon Johnson, not to mention he is the top option as far as pass catching out of the backfield. I think he's a safe play this week. I don't think he has a ridiculous ceiling, but I think he's going to be a solid start for your fantasy football team. David Johnson, same thing goes for him. A lot of people freaking out about the Cardinals' offense here from what they saw in the preseason. I am not freaking out yet. That was very vanilla. There was players all out of position all over the field. Kyler Murray barely saw all his starters at the same time. Expect something different. Expect a little bit more from the Arizona Cardinals to start the season. Are they going to come out here and win a bunch of games? Probably not, but they're going to be a lot more exciting than a lot of people, I think that they may be. So I'm going to go ahead and start David Johnson. He has that pass-catching ability, another one of those backs. He's going to touch the ball 20 times a week. You don't sit those guys. I don't care who they play. As far as sitting, we're going to sit C.J. Anderson. A lot of people may be saying, well, duh, obviously we're going to sit C.J. Anderson, but it may not be so clear-cut for a lot of people. He's going to be involved in this backfield. In fact, if the Lions get out to an early lead here, don't be surprised if C.J. Anderson comes in the fourth quarter and sucks up all the garbage points. They're going to make it an effort to run the ball a little bit more in Detroit, and they want to keep Kerryon Johnson healthy. Big leads happen, we may see more C.J. Anderson, but for right now, he's a sit for me because I'm not just going to bank on the Lions ever going out to a big lead any week. Sunday Night Football, we got the Steelers and the Patriots. Should be another great game, and a lot of people are starting this game. James Conner is going to be one that we're going to start. Obviously, I think he's going to come out here and at least to start the year, they're going to try to solidify this running game early in Pittsburgh. James Conner is going to be the lead man in that backfield. Now, you see that I'm going to sit Jalen Samuels. I love Jalen Samuels, and I think he has a role in this offense. I think maybe even in deep leagues, he has some flex play potential on a weekly basis. However, as of right now, to start week one, I'm going to sit Jalen Samuels until we can really see what that role is. A lot of people over the past few weeks have made assumptions of what it could be, but let's see what it actually is first before we just trust it. We're going to start James Conner just due to the volume alone. That running scheme in Pittsburgh, I think I could run behind the offensive line of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's pretty much anybody who you put back there, kind of plug and play. They're going to play well. They're going to produce big numbers. James Conner's no difference. Going to start him. Now for the Patriots side of the ball, we're going to start Sony Michel. He's looked great in the preseason. They're going to try to establish the run also, and not to mention, the New England Patriots have our number one ranked offensive line in all of football this year. I think Sony Michel starts off strong. Can he finish strong all year long? It's a different story. However, this week, week one, the Patriots are going to want to start off with a win. I'm going to start Sony Michel. James White, also going to start James White. There was a little bit of an injury scare, again with Julian Edelman last game of the preseason with his finger. Is he limited at all? They're saying that he's not, but are they going to come out and say, oh yeah, dude's in a lot of pain? You got to play that by ear. I think James White is still somebody who could see a bulk of targets in this offense. We already know now N'Keal Harry, he's going on IR, designated to return at some point. We don't know when. James White is going to be one of the favorite targets of Tom Brady once again, and he's definitely one of these safe plays, a flex play at least to start the year in PPR leagues. Outside of that, I'm not touching the Damian Harrises yet. Give them some more time. This week, week one, these are the guys we're starting. In what could be one of the highest scoring games of the week, it's the first game on Monday Night Football. It's the Texans and the Saints. And for me, I'm starting Duke Johnson and Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara, kind of a no-brainer. If you drafted him early, you're starting him. But this is a great matchup for him because both of these teams have the ability to put up big numbers and continue to throw the ball all game long. Alvin Kamara could see a huge week here in week one. I'm also starting Duke Johnson. A lot of people wanted to hop off the bandwagon just as quick as they hopped on it once they signed and brought in Carlos Hyde. Don't worry about Carlos Hyde yet. The dude probably hasn't even found a place to live yet. Is he going to come out there and get the bulk of the touches in week one? No, probably not. He may see a little bit of work. Duke Johnson, even though he hasn't been there all offseason either, has a little bit, probably a better opportunity this game. We just talked about it possibly being a shootout. Where does Duke Johnson excel? It's in the passing game, out of the backfield. Still like Duke Johnson, and more than likely where you drafted him, he's your flex play this week, a solid flex play. You're not reliant on him to be your RB1 or RB2. Flex play, though, huge upside for Duke Johnson. As far as sits go, we already talked about Carlos Hyde. The guy probably, barely landed in Houston. I'm not going to go out there and start the guy week 1. Hopefully you don't have to either. Latavius Murray, I do like, but if we're banking on a shootout, if we're banking on a huge game, number-wise, a lot of points scored. Heck, Vegas already has this as the highest scoring game of the week. We're not going to maybe see a whole lot of Latavius Murray. He may be touchdown dependent. If I'm starting my season, week 1 of fantasy football, the last thing I want to try to do is start somebody who I'm just touchdown dependent on because we don't know how many carries he's going to get on a weekly basis. We assume he sees that Mark Ingram role, but let's see it play out before we trust him and start him here in week 1. Second game on Monday night, we have the Denver Broncos and the Oakland Raiders. Not one to get you too excited unless you're a fan of one of these teams. In my opinion, I'm going to start Phillip Lindsay of the Denver Broncos. I still think that he sees enough PPR upside to make him a safe play as a weekly flex play, at least to start. The upside might be there. However, how much of his game is eaten into by Royce Freeman? Both of them have a chance to see carries in this backfield. Nobody knows what that actual split is going to be. The pass catching ability, that PPR upside, is enough to make Phillip Lindsay a startable flex play here in week 1. In my opinion, though, Royce Freeman, we still need to see what type of role he gets. He's going to be a sit. Now, probably one of the biggest question marks, and probably one that I'll probably get the most hate on, which I really don't care about, is Josh Jacobs. I am not a Josh Jacobs truther. A lot of people are just assuming that he comes out here because he was drafted in the first round and puts up huge numbers. This is a solid front for the Denver Broncos. They have a solid pass rush. Do we maybe see a little bit more in the passing game for the Oakland Raiders than we see from the running game here in week 1? Entirely possible. They have a lot of new shiny toys on the outside. Do they use them in week 1 and kind of just, piece, a run game together here or there, bring Josh Jacobs along a little bit slower? This will be his first regular season NFL game. You think he's going to go out there and just get 25 touches, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns? I'm not seeing it. Not against the Denver Broncos, not in week 1. I'm going to sit Josh Jacobs. Now, does this mean I'm going to sit him every week of the year? No, it doesn't. But week 1, I'm not on the bandwagon. I'm sitting Josh Jacobs. All right, so those were all the matchups, all the running back starts and sits here for week 1 of your fantasy football season. Do me a favor, if I helped you out at all, hit that like button for us. It greatly helps us out here on YouTube. That's all we really ask for. If you have any questions, comments, put them down below in the comment section. We do our best. We try so hard getting to every single question and comment that we have that's brought to us. But be patient. There's a lot of comments on a lot of videos, and it's hard just to get to every single one of them. We have people sending us comments all over all of our social media platforms, and we're doing our best to help everybody out. Greatly appreciate the support. Hopefully you like this format. It's new to a lot of you because I know we've gained a lot of subscribers since the end of last season. If you're new here and you enjoyed this format, this is how we do start sits, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Greatly appreciate the support. Hopefully you guys are ready for week 1 because we're going to absolutely kill it here in 2019.